Now, it has to be one of the most traumatic things that someone who's been sexually abused has to go through. They have to go over all those horrendous memories of the attack when they come to court.
Now, the Home Secretary has said victims could be put off giving evidence after the pressure became too much for one woman, Frances Andrade, who took her own life. In a moment, we'll speak exclusively to Frances's son, Oliver, about why he thinks she was let down during the trial of Michael and Hilary Brewer.
They were accused of sexually assaulting her as a child, but it was Frances Andrade who felt like she was on trial during the case against Michael and Hilary Brewer. She thought she'd be questioned for a few hours over the accusations dating back to the 70s, when Frances was a student violinist at Cheltenham School of Music in Manchester. Instead, Frances was cross-examined for 3 days and called a fantasist and a liar by the defence barrister Kate Blackwell. Last week, choirmaster Michael Brewer and his ex-wife Hilary Brewer were found guilty of indecent sexual assault. But it was too late for Frances, who died of an overdose at home before the verdict was in.
Frances's son, Oliver, joins us now. So sorry about the sad loss of your mother. She found the whole ordeal of giving evidence very, very difficult, didn't she?
She found it extremely traumatic. I mean, it was particularly because she was unprepared for what was about to happen. She hadn't really been led through what the court process was, had expected to go there and have time to talk with what she had thought was her barrister beforehand, get herself prepared for the case. She was, in fact, only expecting there to be done in an afternoon and go home, and it ended up lasting about 3.5 days that she had to sit in court being questioned.
And she felt like she was on trial?
Yeah, she did. She was questioned very aggressively as far as she was concerned, and being accused of being a liar. So in court, she was feeling like a victim again.
And you were very worried about her, weren't you? You were concerned about it anyway, having to go through this.
Yeah, I mean, throughout the time leading up to it, she had been very depressed. She had been having a hard time, and we knew it was going to get harder as it went to trial.
No, very much so. Ollie, we just read about her in the papers. You know, we read about this woman who was horrendously abused and that took her own life. But there's so much more to it than that. What was she like as a mum?
She was an amazing mum. She did everything she could for us and for everyone she met. I mean, she was incredibly loving, incredibly caring, got very passionate about all things, music especially, of course. But she was a great mum and a great wife.
What impact has all this had on your family?
It's of course been very tough for all of us. We have had a little more time to come to grips with it than everyone else because of the press blackout that had occurred. But of course, it is still very hard for us, and
really tough for you.
We want to make sure it doesn't happen to others.
You've got a little sister, haven't you? And she's
yes.
Is she aware of what's happening?
Well, she's only 9, so she's aware.
Goodness me.
But she hasn't entirely come to grips with it.
You did say that you don't want this to happen to anyone else. It's the system that you want changed. What would you like to see?
I think, in particular, it's mental health care which needs to be looked at. She had attempted suicide about 6 times over the last year, and there were times where in hospital she had tried on a Friday or Saturday, gone into hospital, and wasn't able to see a psychiatrist because they don't work at the weekends. And so she was just cared for physically without what was actually needed being done for her.
And what about the court as well? What about the whole sort of court process?
In court, I think it's just important that she had the whole process explained to her in more detail. If she'd known quite how long she was going to be there, how brutally she was going to be questioned, then maybe she could have been able to prepare herself for it a little more.
And you could see the decline happening day after day, couldn't you?
Yes. I mean, coming out of court, she just burst into tears. She tried so hard to keep a straight face in front of the jury, to try to seem strong for them, but it was extremely hard on her.
And she was advised by the police not to get any therapy. Why was that?
Well, she was told that therapists often will work by asking leading questions, trying to make you relive it, and that this can lead to false memories being created, or at least so they can claim. And the court has access to any transcripts with a therapist, so they are able to see this, and the defence barrister can try to use it against you.
I see. So for their case, they didn't want their case to be jeopardised.
This was, at least before the case after they were happy for her to go and do it.
Absolutely.
But it was their advice to leave it until afterwards.
But you want a change because you've lost your mum.
Yes, yes. I think that they needed to let her have therapy, have support. I mean, even if it's the police work together with a certain number of therapists to make sure that they are working in a way which can't decrease the conviction rate, working in a way which is essentially police guaranteed. But some form of therapy, at least, should definitely be advised rather than not discouraged.
Exactly. Ollie, thank you so much
thank
for
you so
coming
much
in.
for coming in and talking about
Really
it.
appreciate it. It's dreadful, absolutely dreadful.
And all the very
Thank you.
best to you as well, and the family.
Thank you. Right, it's 16 minutes past 8. We'll see you after the break.